All right, everyone, welcome to the August 23rd, 2018 Helm Community Call. For those of you who are new or have just joined, our normal MO is we have announcements, then we go through stand-up of all the core developers, then we have a discussion, and then we figure out assignments for the next week because we divvy up certain tasks. And so with that, let me go ahead and share the doc. Oh, it's already been shared here. Thanks, Adnan. So with that, we can get started. I have no announcements listed here in the minutes. Did anybody have any announcements they wanted to talk about? Silence means none. Fantastic. So with that, we can go into stand-ups here. Who would like to go first? Dr. Butcher.
I was issue Sherpa for the week. I didn't do a great job on it, but tried to keep on top of it. Matt Fisher ended up helping me. Nothing tremendously big came up there. Then other than that, I worked just a tiny bit on the governance proposal this week with Matt Farina, and worked with Brian quite a bit, just listening to him talk through some of the Lua details and bouncing ideas off of him. And so that's about it for me for the week. For the next week, it'll probably be, I won't be issue Sherpa, but otherwise similar this afternoon and tomorrow. I have pairing time set up with Adam so we can go over some of the Helm 3 stuff. I don't know why I'm admitting that in public. That's like turning something into an obligation that was going to just be fun. But anyway,
now you will be held accountable by the end.
That's right. So that's it for me. And I'll tag Adam on that one.
Yes, we have it recorded now. I'm saying that. So, just not too much to report. Just continue to work on the Helm 3 refactoring stuff. I'm looking into right now how to break up my work into some smaller chunks to start getting it into the upstream branch right now. So hopefully it should be getting some more stuff moved into that branch open this week. Yeah, just continuing on that. Go, Michelle.
I didn't do much actually this week besides like review one Helm PR, and then I also released this morning the newly named Secure Tiller plugin. It's now named Tiller RBAC, which makes way more sense for the scope of the plugin. And yeah, so that's available. Taylor Thomas, you want to go?
Wait.
Yeah.
Can I steal focus again? So one thing I forgot to mention was I went ahead and merged the 1.11 support into master. So you should be able to just do your standard Canary install and run the Kubernetes 1.11 stuff. Go Taylor.
Okay, I've been just doing some PR work. I'll probably be doing some more of that today and tomorrow as well. There is a PR out there. There was a PR like a couple of months, I think at the beginning of the year, where someone had been trying to add support for the recursive build option. And someone else, that one was just kind of been left to languish. And so someone else implemented it. The logic looks pretty good, but it broke the public API, so I asked to see if they could rewrite it to not break the API. But the logic looks good, but I thought it would be good to maybe have Farina or one of the other chart people take a look at it as well to make sure there's edge cases that you've seen that I've never seen that we could catch and make sure we double check it works on. I'll put the link in the chat just in case, but that was the one PR I would need some more eyes on. But otherwise, I'm just working through PR key stuff.
Sweet, yeah, send it over. I look forward to reading it.
Okay, and who has not gone since I jumped in a little late?
I can go though. I don't have
Okay, good, and then
I was on holiday for the early part of this week, but I did mention that I was putting together a proposal for changes in the Monocle last week, and hopefully I'll have that PR'd in the community repo today. By end of day, I guess. But yeah, that's it. Who else hasn't gone? Fisher, you want to go?
Sure, I'll go. So yeah, this last week kind of just helping out on the issue queue after. So actually I missed out one announcement, which was since the last time we had the meeting, Helm version 2.10.0 was released. So that's available. So I've just been watching and monitoring the issue queue for anything that's been popping up with 2.10 specific bugs. I haven't seen any yet. I've seen people reporting bugs where they're seeing on version 2.10, but they look like they're issues that could have been present in version 2.9 as well. So maybe I'll follow back up on those issues again and just make sure that those are going through. But otherwise, just kind of monitoring and making sure that the release is going through and everything seems to be good. So that's what I've been doing this week. I believe, Farina, you were meeting lead, and I think that's everyone on the list.
Well, Josh, you put in your notes into the doc. Did you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, I've been doing that. I invited Zach to the call. Right after this, we're going to talk about Helm login stuff. So that's kind of like my priority, but I haven't really had time to mess with it too much. But I keep hearing people asking about Helm repository authentication. So it's a hot topic that I'm looking into. Also, Chart Museum has a website that's coming. I put a link in the notes that has a little preview. So that should be, and we're going to open source it too. So that's it.
All right, then I guess I'll go real quick. One thing that might help you, Josh, is Chart Museum appears to be now part of Harbor, the CNCF container registry project. It was originally created by VMware, did container registry, has Claire in it for things like that. And in their release candidate for their next one, they've got Chart Museum integration. And I think there might be some auth stuff in that as well. I have no idea how they're doing it, but there's something there. And so that might be
a lot of people just keep putting like proxies in front of it, which I mean,
that's fine.
Yeah, we can discuss it. I put it on the discussion too.
Great. And so for me, besides working on the governance doc, which I went ahead and worked on, I've also been working on the DCO stuff here we're going to talk about in a minute, trying to figure out how to make the automation work for charts, because that's been our big holdup. So that's the first discussion topic I've got here, because I think we're about ready to make the big switch, which was already approved by the Helm maintainers. We just haven't carried it out yet. So DCO, that.
I have a quick question on DCO based on the stuff that you showed me yesterday. So DCO requires that every single commit is signed off, or just that the one commit in the PR is signed off?
I think every commit. So if you've got 4 commits in the PR, they all need to be signed.
Yeah, the PR, you don't sign that. You sign the individual commits.
So each commit needs to be signed. That becomes part of it. So I guess we can move into the discussion topics. Oh, wait, one last thing. Is there anybody else in the community of folks who wanted to say anything?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to say I'm going to be available for 3 days next week, because I've been an internal project for all my life now, it seems. But three full days. So I might just help out on the issue queue as much as I can, unless there's something. And I also wanted to bring up something right quick. A friend of mine that works on Istio has said this bug, which is a known issue and everything, is blocking them. And it's the 3-way merge patch that we haven't implemented and all that. And I didn't know if anyone I think Fisher, maybe you worked on that some. Is that like a non-starter for 2.0 or for 2X?
I'm just looking at the issue right now. Just 1 second.
Yeah, I can talk to that. So switching to something like that would be a major change. It's something I looked into a while ago with having a flag that you can optionally switch over. But the trying to remember off the top of my head, but there was some behavior that was completely unexpected with it that happened. And it's based on the apply logic. It only works for like the individual resource. Since we're dealing with collections of resources, it doesn't exactly work, which is the whole reason why we did the diff from the previous release to the new release, and that's why we say you shouldn't edit stuff outside using like kube control any of your resources that you created with Helm. I've been working on a POC for Helm 3, but I do not think this is something we would want to do for Helm 2. It would be major.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to make sure it was absolutely rock solid and hidden behind a feature flag.
Okay.
Because otherwise we're going to end up with people who try one strategy and it fails and they switch to the other strategy, and we will have
And with updating resources, there's so many edge cases that we'd just be opening ourselves up for a world of hurt if we try to implement something like that for Helm 2 when we're looking into phasing it out, like a big feature like that.
Sure.
Here's a question. Server-side apply is coming, right? Is there anything within that would be useful to help make this possible? I haven't looked at it.
Well, it'd be the same kind of fundamental issue where it would be completely different logic for applies, even if it was server-side apply. And like, is that something we want to do for Helm 2? So there's two kind of things going. One is the technical thing. One is the introducing a big feature like that on something that we're sunsetting, hopefully very soon.
Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, he had asked me and I didn't know the answer, so I thought I would.
Yeah, there's a few issues in the queue on this topic. I haven't gone in and replied to all of them in a while. I should probably do that this week.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. I didn't realize you'd popped in, or I would have had you earlier in the chat. All right. Did anybody else have anything stand-up-wise they wanted to share? Did I miss anybody?
Oh, I just wrote in the chat. This is Sasha again. I just was going to mention that one of the biggest edge cases for me when working with Helm charts has been the unintended updating of passwords when not supplying them explicitly during a Helm upgrade. So this can kind of break deployment sometimes. I wonder what are the plans for this guy?
Sorry, what was breaking?
For example, if you have a Postgres chart and it has auto-generates a password, the next time you upgrade it, if you don't explicitly get that password from the secret and explicitly assign it, it will get regenerated. So you'll get another password set up, which erases your previous password, which is the correct password actually, and then you're never able to log back in and you kind of lose stuff.
Yeah, so this is the case when passwords are automatically generated when something's installed.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so it doesn't detect that a password already exists, and so don't regenerate it. It just generates a new one. And therein lies the problem on upgrades. It'll generate new passwords every time, breaking things that use that existing password, right? When a chart happens, because we don't have a good pattern documented on how to say only generate it if one doesn't exist, or don't generate a new one on an upgrade kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. No, yeah, this is an open problem, and I don't think we've tackled it. And if anybody has ideas, he dropped in an issue. I haven't thought much about it. It looks like it's been sitting around for a while. But that is something we need to find a solution for, practice on. Well, thank you. I don't have a good answer right off the top of my head.
I would guess that using a pre-install hook to create a config map and mounting the config map would be the most likely good solution you'd find out of this, because the pre-install hook will only get fired during install, but I'm not sure. I'd have to kind of, that would require you can mount the config map somewhere and inject either the environment variable or the file.
That's a good idea.
Isn't there a way to tell you're in an upgrade too? thought there was like that release died.
There is, but the tricky part is then all you can do is unset the value. So you have to supply, the trick is you have to supply the same value that was generated during install. And so if you can get it to not overwrite an existing value during upgrade, that might work. But the currently proposed solutions are all about trying to capture the password that was generated the first time and feed that back in during upgrades, I think, if I'm understanding the problem correctly. But you're right. I mean, that's another option, is to look into using that. What is it? Is upgrade or whatever the flag is on .release?
I think
there is upgrade and is install.
I think we tried to use that before, and what happened was if you skip the secret on is upgrade, it would just go and delete that secret, which is obviously not on there. I haven't tried to use it in with the keep annotation. That might be a way to get around that, but then you'd have that secret hanging around as well. Yeah. So so I don't know what the best way to solve that is. I think there's a couple of workarounds, but I feel like none of the options are nice right now.
Yeah. No, if anybody comes up with a good idea, a good pattern we can generally use, please let us know. But all these should be ferreted out. I know I won't have time to chase this down in the next couple of months, though, unfortunately. All right, we've got about 10 minutes and several discussion items. I'd like to get through a few of them. So the DCO, right? We've been sitting in this one for quite a while on making the move because of the charts, but I have a pull request that I think has an idea of how we could use Brigade and some stuff to actually scan all the commits and then figure out if any of them don't have it. It needs a little tweaking, but it's something we could probably implement in the charts repo pretty easily. And since soon we'll have a Kubernetes cluster here for the hub site, which is coming up in the next one, we can probably host Brigade on that until then, and I or somebody else can host a Brigade in a Kubernetes cluster. We can even host it in the current charts testing stuff that runs a Brigade and has a hook on it. That should be pretty straightforward, and we could check everything out pretty easily then. And then we know people who do Brigade who could support us if there was a problem, which is very nice. Yeah. Who? I don't know. And so I think it's finally time that early next week, I'd like to pull the trigger on switching everything over to the DCO, just so we can get it out of the way. We might as well rip that Band-Aid off.
Have you checked to see if GitHub has something built in for only accepting signed commits? I think I remember seeing something.
Probot does it. That's what we'll use. We'll put it on org-wide. But what Probot doesn't do is let us apply a label for it, and we need a label for the charts automation that's using prow in that. So on the charts repo, it basically says you have these labels and an and then you don't have these others labels, and then the Kubernetes bot can merge things based on owners' files. And so the only thing we're really working on is we care about applying a label that the prow bot then can use when it does stuff. And Probot will just apply to the whole org, and then we'll just get it. We'll remove the CLA Linux one, and we'll add Probot, and then just everything new will then need to be signed. Every new contribution, every updated PR will then need to be signed. Okay, and it'll handle it org-wide. Our one-off case is just the charts repo, which has some extra automation we've got to deal with. And that's all this is for. That's the only place I would stick this, because we need a label applied. And then we'll have to do that. And so the thing that I ask is when I go do all this stuff, there's the blog post that has been shared around amongst the maintainers. We need to make sure that's ready to go up on the Helm blog, because we got to update contributing files and all of that. I can probably do work in progress ones tomorrow. But when I finally pull the trigger, I'm going to want another body pairing with me on it. Is anybody up for it? And I need somebody who's an org admin. Michelle? Are you up for it Monday?
Yeah, we can pair if you want. Unless Adam was about to volunteer, then I'll just throw him to you.
Michelle,
Yeah.
does this sound good to finally pull the trigger on this on Monday? Just rip the Band-Aid off. We'll do it maybe Monday after SIGAPs sometime in the next couple hours after SIGAPs.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. The next item was also mine. Was Helm v3 and the hub, and do we try to enforce or notify people of immutable charts? Because right now, if the digest changes, we just kind of ignore it. We're not really doing anything with digests. And so the question is should with this stuff we notify people or even just enforce and say, this person broke it, we're not going to let you do anything? What do y'all think?
I'm not 100% familiar on the problem space. Can you perhaps try and clarify a little bit on like if there's a bug or something that this refers to?
So immutability is if somebody generates a chart and then they change it but keep it at the exact same version number, right? Then the chart changed for a single version, the content of the chart. And you can see that, I believe, in the digest of the chart, you can see the digest has changed for the same version. Right now, we just say, okay, you can update the same chart 100 or whatever infinite times you want while keeping the same version number, but the contents keep changing out from underneath that chart, right? And so if I install that chart twice, but the contents change, I could end up with two different things because somebody did that, changed something. And we've run into this on the public charts repo where we used to just, folks would change stuff, particularly documentation and things that they didn't think would cause an issue without incrementing the chart. And we should always increment the chart version and keep things immutable. That was one of the discussions we'd had on the Helm issue queue a while ago. But it's not enforced, it's just kind of a convention. And we've even debated it recently with charts saying, let's just go update. There's like 20 charts we want to update a docs thing on. Let's just go update them and it'll do the same version again, right? But really, we should be being immutable. So should we do some kind of enforcement or notification when that breaks as a feature? Like in Helm 3, if somebody changes it, but we notice the digest has changed. I mean, that would be some work, but is that the kind of thing we should go for? And should the hub be checking repositories in it to make sure that as kind of a task, you're being immutable? And we can eventually automate it, have it a policy up front, and then eventually automate and make sure that this is fine. But should we do that?
I think I need to think about how this would affect stuff for like when you're in development.
Yeah.
I think that having tooling around it is definitely good. Whether Helm has some built-in thing.
And I would think about this being.
I don't know if that's the place for it. You know, like. Git tags you can move around, like Docker tags you can move around. You know, like if you want to shoot your foot off, you can do it in a number of ways.
So should we warn people that the contents of a chart at the same version changed? Like when you do a repository update or something like that, oh, this chart had the same tag, but the digest has changed for it. Therefore, the contents has changed. Is that the kind of thing we should have as a warning? On the hub, I'm getting lots of things saying, yes, we should.
We start with the notification and then end in enforcement someday to where we don't allow it?
Well, we could just start with a notification to let people know the contents of a chart that they got via a repository have changed at the same version.
Yeah, I guess that would mostly work because the other, I think the development use case, Adam, that you might be referencing, or at least the most common use case for developing a chart is when you're developing it locally, changing things on the chart, and then doing like a Helm upgrade or a Helm install locally. But
it would only happen if you do like a package. But where are you talking about this check happening when fetching a new cache index from a repository?
It could be, yeah. So for example, you get a new cache index, and then when we were fetching that, we noticed that a digest changed. We could walk it, look for digest changes from the old one to the new one, and say, oh, a digest for this package at this version has changed. And just give a warning.
Yeah, I just think that might be annoying because if you just do an update and there's a bunch of charts that somebody did something with that you don't even care about, all these warning bells going off.
That's true. We might be able to find it. And okay, so if we could find a way that only looked at maybe ones you were using or had a good UX, would that be better? Because I understand what you're saying. If somebody went and did a whole bunch of them, that would be a problem. Maybe we could just start with the hub and look at something there, so that way we could detect when folks, when people who distribute them, we set a policy that you have to have immutable ones, and then if we catch them not doing that, we can notify them and maybe kick them out. And that would be an easy way. We could do that just in our automation in the background on the hub.
I think the hub idea makes a lot of sense, but I'm for warnings on the repository update too, because if you're doing an update on a repository, you're fetching from people who you trust are maintaining best practices on the repository, and a best practice is monthly conversion if you've made a change to your chart.
And maybe we have a way you could turn it off, a config option where you could turn that off if you didn't want it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a verbose or debug. It could be behind the debug or verbose flag. That makes sense to me too, if you wanted to do that.
I don't think the using the client cache will ever be really solid because, in CI or automated deployments, you're going to have a fresh cache and you would never catch it, even though, so this version's changing underneath you, or not changing, but the contents are changing, and you never know. And you've got multiple deployments that are different, so. But I like the hub idea for sure.
And I think it's going to be really tricky to find the best place to issue a warning like that on the client side.
I would at least like to think it through more, because this is the kind of thing we should be trying to help folks understand when these kinds of things, on the internet, from a security standpoint, we don't look at this a lot because it could be a security issue. Maybe something was intercepted in between, and that's, there's ways.
I'm probably with you. I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm just trying to think it through from the user experience.
No. I agree. And for some of it, by the way, many of these other package systems where you upload it to won't let you change the contents. They want you to do a new version. And they're not going to let you go change it. They'll let you deprecate an old version, but many of them will enforce you doing a new version. Okay, there's some more things here, and we are at the end of the meeting now. So some of this will probably have to roll over to the next meeting. Do we want to do assignments real quick?
Do we have interest in starting the release for 2.11 and issuing an RC1?
Sure. I mean, it's easy enough to cut the branch.
Because we still don't have 1.11 support out. I mean, it's merged, it's just not released.
Hey, real quick here. Butcher, can you carry the rest of the meeting? I have to go give an update in the Kubernetes community meeting now.
Yeah, all right.
Thanks. Bye, y'all.
I hereby elect myself ruler of this meeting from here until 11:03. 10:03. Okay, so I guess we should, if you all are up for it, I think we should probably cut an RC1 of 2.11. I know that's really fast, but a lot of people asking for that. Okay, volunteer to lead the meeting next week.
One thing about the 2.11 thing, Butcher, is that we should make sure we just comb through the PRs one more time to make sure just double check that there's a few PRs, because I know there's a couple people who said, I want this in 2.11 if it's going to get through. Like the recursive build PR, I know they asked for 2.11 and they're actively responding to feedback on the PR. And so I don't want to cut that out on accident. So I want to make sure we don't do that before we cut an RC.
Okay. So who's Sherpaing this week? So Adam's going to lead next week. Michelle's going to take notes next week. Who's going to Sherpa this week?
I can work on the queue, but I'm going to be out Thursday and Friday, but I can Sherpa Monday through Wednesday.
Okay, that should be fine.
Sure.
Because by Thursday we'll elect a new person, right? So, all right. Thanks, Justin. Is that it? It was really great to be the leader for a minute and a half. Just wanted to say. All right.
Awesome job.
There were two last discussion items on the thing, which is the Eric Chang Kates instead of Clanko for V3 and the Helm login discussion topic. Should we defer those to next week?
Yeah.
Yeah, unless somebody wants to argue that we should stay late and talk about it.
The login thing, I may try to have a meeting early next week, so I'll send a thing out to the mailing list if that's the case.
Okay.
Yeah. And have people been watching the Eric Chang fork of the client Go? Is it still being maintained pretty actively? That's what I'd kind of like to watch and see if that one gets maintained. All right. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.